Law, I know you're thinking, what's menstruation got to do with the law? Well, the Indian Constitution states that all people are equal before the law. So, restricting access to shops, hotels, wells, tanks, and public places in general because of menstruation is basically illegal. So, now you know.
Did you know that all menstruators have a right to privacy, life, and health? If it's your body that's bleeding, then you get to decide whether or not you go to, you stay at, or you leave a public gathering. Any religious custom or superstition that forces you to stay outside of your house when you're menstruating is a violation of this right, and you're allowed to not comply with it. It is your right. So now you know.
So now you know, as you should know, let's challenge the status quo. They've got a million reasons, one for every season. But it's alright, that's alright, it's the law. That's alright, it's the law.
By law, all schools are supposed to have separate toilets for boys and girls. The National Education Policy mandates that the central government create a gender inclusion fund, keeping in mind all, not only two genders, and to provide education and clean washrooms to them. So now you know.
You may be working, but I bet you did not know that no employer can discriminate on the ground of sex while hiring or during the employment. Any policy that intends to discriminate against us on the basis of our periods is an offense. Additionally, there is a law that clean washroom should be provided and maintained for us in an office at fair wage rates for the cleaners. So, now you know.
So now you know, as you should know. And hey, seriously, hello, just because we're bleeding, that's not superseding. Alright, that's right, it's the law. It's the law.
We can go to the police and register an FIR against any persons or institutions that physically force check if we are having our periods, because we are protected by the Indian Penal Code. And the state of Karnataka actually passed a law stating that forced isolation, prohibiting re-entry into the village, and the segregation of menstruating women is an offense and punishable in Karnataka. So now you know.
Did you know that according to the United Nations, it is a form of torture to force girls and women, including disabled folks, to have hysterectomies, meaning get their uterus removed so that they don't get pregnant or have periods? So now you know.
So now you know, as you should know, and you know just where to go. There's an institution, it's called the Constitution, with rights, that's right, it's the law, that's right.
The Indian Supreme Court's verdict expanded caste-based untouchability that is illegal according to the Indian Constitution to include menstrual discrimination and hold that menstruating women cannot be prohibited from places of public worship. So now you know.
So now you know, as you should know, let's challenge the status quo. Share it with your mother, your father, and your brother, classmates and your teachers, your priests and all your preachers, your politicians and employers, any confidence destroyers. Start a thread, let it spread, let it grow, and everyone needs to know it's alright. That's right, it's the law. That's right, it's the law. And everyone needs to know.
So, many thanks to Bharti Kanan for the video. She will be one of our panelists today during our very exciting event, Menstrual Health Rights. This song said it all. It was about menstrual health rights in India, and it applies, of course, to all our countries. And we're going to look at the SDG 6, the Sustainable Development Goal 6, from a gender lens. And we have a number of amazing speakers with us today, but we're also going to make this very interactive. And we're organizing this together with, hosted by, the Mission of Spain. Thank you very, very much for hosting us. As well as the Women's Major Group, of course. Yoo-hoo! And my organization, Women Engage for a Common Future. And why are we wearing pink today? Pink, because we are raising attention about the link between SDG 6 and sexual and reproductive health and rights. So get your scarf if you don't have one yet and share the messages to all the participants today, because today is SDG 6 Day on Water and Sanitation. Welcome, welcome, welcome. What are we going to do today in the coming 1.5 hours? We will share some good practices on how to really strengthen menstrual rights at a local level. Because we can have them in our constitution, as we just heard, but they're not automatically implemented at the local level. So we'll hear about that. We'll also hear about how this links to other UN processes and also the recent UN Global Water Conference, which took part in March. And we're going to look specifically also at some really innovative policies on menstrual health and hygiene and rights. And we're going to talk, of course, about why is menstruation still a taboo and why we should speak loud and clear about the rights of menstruators. So that's today's event. Now let me invite onto the podium our fantastic panelists. I understand that we will start with the chargé d'affaires of ad interim of the Mission of Spain, Pablo Gutierrez-Segu, who will first speak from the podium over here, and after that we will bring the other speakers on board. Mr. Pablo Gutierrez-Segu, the floor is yours.
Well, good afternoon, and thank you very much, and especially thanks to Women's Major Group and Women Engagement for organizing this event alongside us and the Instituto Cervantes. Menstrual health is a human right. Poor menstrual health and hygiene undermines women's enjoyment of such fundamental rights as the right to health, the right to education, or the right to participate in public life. Therefore, we need to build societies where women and girls can live their menstruation in a dignified and safe way. We need to leave behind the taboos and the discriminatory practices that you mentioned just a moment ago. I can proudly say that last February, Spain passed a new law on sexual and reproductive health that explicitly includes the right to menstrual health as the integral state of physical, mental, and social well-being in relation to the menstrual cycle. Thank you. Well, to go into the law briefly, this law includes the provision of paid sick leave for women and other persons who suffer from disabling periods. The law is also concerned with educating to eliminate myths, prejudice, and gender stereotypes around the menstrual cycle. The objective is to include menstrual health in schools' curricula as part of a comprehensive approach to health with a gender, intersectional, and human rights perspective. Additionally, as per this new law, with the aim to ending menstrual poverty, free period products should be made available in educational centers, prisons, and community centers. Talking about SDG 6, we know that menstrual health is closely related to access to safe water and sanitation. For Spain, these are priority issues. They represent one of the main lines of work of our Agency for International Development Cooperation, the ICID, mainly in Latin America, the Caribbean, and the Mediterranean basin, especially in rural areas and the most vulnerable populations. Also, the IC's humanitarian assistance includes, among other activities, the provision of hygiene kits for families and menstrual management product kits. These gender and age-appropriate kits are essential to ensure women and teenage girls access to menstrual health and to reduce the incidence of sexual and reproductive health infections. The IC has also participated at the Conference on Menstrual Hygiene Management that last May, Acción contra el Hambre, Ongawa, and the University of Alcalá organized. The main objective of this conference was to make menstrual hygiene visible as a right, to systematize its approach in public health programs, and to influence public agendas. In a way, the same objectives we have here today. We have to continue our work. We have to continue our work to ensure that women and girls globally have adequate, stigma-free access to the enjoyment of their human rights to sexual reproductive health, including menstrual health. Finally, I have to ask for your indulgence, as I won't be able to stay for the duration of the event because I have to go somewhere else. But I'll hear everything from Anna later, and I'm really looking forward to that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much, Pablo Gutierrez-Sigo, for your exciting news. I think we can learn a lot from the policy developments in Spain. And this is one of the topics we will be talking about. What can we share from good policy examples on menstrual health, menstrual rights? And so what you mentioned for the law, the new law which was passed on SRHR, also the free access to period products in schools and prisons, all of that is very innovative and very exciting. So we would like to discuss more of that today. We understand fully that you are have a very busy agenda. So thank you. And I will now invite your colleague and all the other panelists onto the stage. So let me make sure that I get them right. We start with Rio Hada. Please join me on the stage. You may sit in the middle. And I will introduce you briefly. I will ask also Bharti Kanan to join me, and you may also sit here in the middle. I will ask, we have two speakers online, Natasha and Susan, who are there, I suppose. Oh, you're here, Susan. I hadn't had the pleasure to meet you yet. Susan, please join me right here. Excellent. And last but not least, Ana Maria Alonso Giganto. Please take whatever seat you prefer, this one or that one. Wonderful. So a warm welcome to our panelists. And we will start with a short video message, because we also have another country which is doing a lot of great work on improving policies for menstrual health. So we have invited for a video message the Institute of Public Health of North Macedonia. Do you know where North Macedonia is? Yes, okay, good. So North Macedonia is in the Western Balkans. And there we have a partner online, Nadezhda, and she has asked the Institute of Public Health to share a short message about the work which is being done on policies in North Macedonia. Let's see if we get the video online.
Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, it is with great pleasure and honor that I stand before you today to welcome you all to the high-level political forum on the crucial topic of menstrual health. This forum serves as a platform to address the pressing issues surrounding menstrual health management and foster a positive dialogue to drive change. Today, we gather here with a specific focus on the perspective of North Macedonia, and I'm delighted to see such a diverse and dedicated audience. Menstrual health is a fundamental aspect of women's well-being, yet it was often been overshadowed by silence, stigma, and limited access to resources. However, the landscape is gradually changing, and we are witnessing a remarkable shift in societal attitudes and policies, including here in North Macedonia. We recognize the importance of creating a positive and inclusive environment where menstrual health is openly discussed, understood, and supported as well. In North Macedonia, we are proud to acknowledge the strides that have been made to promote menstrual health, decrease WOT from 18 to 5%, and promote reusable pads. The government, civil society organizations, healthcare professionals, educators, and advocates have come together to ensure that no woman or girl is left behind in the pursuit of menstrual well-being. One of the key factors that contribute to positive menstrual health is access to accurate information and education. North Macedonia has taken significant steps to integrate comprehensive menstrual health education into school curricula, ensuring that young people are equipped with the knowledge and understanding they need to manage their menstrual health effectively. By providing this knowledge, we empower our girls and women to make informed choice and navigate their menstrual journey with confidence. Furthermore, our government has recognized the importance of providing access to affordable and hygienic menstrual products. We have implemented initiatives to ensure that vulnerable populations have access to the necessary supplies, removing financial barriers that hinder their ability to manage their menstrual health adequately. These measures are not only about ensuring hygiene, but also promoting dignity and self-esteem for every menstruating individuals in our society. In addition to education and access to products, North Macedonia has been working diligently to address the social and cultural norms surrounding menstruation. We are challenging the stigmatization and taboos associated with periods and promoting a society that respects and values menstrual health as a natural and normal part of life. By doing so, we aim to foster a supportive environment that promotes dialogue, empathy, and understanding, ultimately leading to better outcomes for all. Our scientific paper with impact factor has been published in 2021, that is published by Kochubovsky, Petrova, Mehmeti, Bukovic, Menstrual Hygiene among Medical Female Students. It is published in Acta Scientific Women's Health in 2021 with DOI. In 2022-2023, we have made interview with questionnaire on 1,600 female high school students in North Macedonia, and we are preparing a scientific paper to be published. Ladies and gentlemen, the high-level political forum on menstrual health offers us a unique opportunity to come together, share experiences, and learn from each other. It is through collaboration and partnership that we can create sustainable change and prioritize menstrual health as a global imperative. I would like to express my deepest gratitude to all the individuals and organizations who have contributed to the progress we have made thus far. Your dedication, passion, and unwavering commitment have propelled us forward, and we must continue to build on these foundations. Let us seize this moment to deepen our understanding, foster meaningful connections, and strive for a future where every person, regardless of their gender, can live a life free from the burdens and challenges associated with menstrual health. Together, let us create a world where menstrual health is celebrated, where access is equitable, and where the positive relation to menstrual hygiene management is the norm. We need free toxic menstruation. Thank you, and I wish you all a productive and transformative high-level political forum. Professor Michal Poczubowski.
So, a second example from a country which is really advancing on policies and practices for menstrual health and rights. So many thanks to the colleagues from North Macedonia. Let me now introduce our first speaker here on the panel. Mr. Rio Hada is coordinating the work of the UN Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights in the area of economic and social rights here in the office in New York. But you are a long-term expert also on SDG 6. You have worked a lot on the human right to water and sanitation. So we're really glad to have you here with us today. And I give you the floor. And you need to have a microphone. And oopla, I will give it to you. There you go.
Thank you very much. I'm very glad to be here. And I'd like to really start by recognizing and thanking all your efforts and those of the activists all around the world. And of course, the leadership of the government of Spain, which have led to increased recognition of menstruation, not just as a public health issue, but fundamentally a human rights issue and a critical one for gender equality of women and girls all over the world. So menstrual health as a human rights concern has been recognized by the Human Rights Council through a series of important resolutions that draw attention to how the lack of water and sanitation can interfere and disrupt women's and girls' access to education, ability to earn livelihood, participate in decision making, and protect their safety, including attention to specific groups of women and girls, such as those with disabilities, among others. So there has been a recognition that the issue of water and sanitation and menstrual health is a very significant one for the realization of a variety of wide range of human rights. And much work has also been done by a different UN human rights mechanism, special rapporteurs on water sanitation, right to health, education, violence against women, and the working group on discrimination against women and girls. And they have outlined the need to break the taboo around menstrual health and made concrete recommendations to ensure that those discriminatory mindsets and measures are changed and menstrual health protected. But still, around the world, women and girls in all their diversity still continue to face barriers towards the realization of their menstrual health that are rooted in denials of their human rights. Discriminatory norms and practices against women and girls around menstruation are all too common in many contexts, affecting their health, educational and job opportunities, and participation in decision making, as well as their safety and security. And the COVID-19 pandemic and the gendered impact of economic, environmental, conflict, and humanitarian and health crisis have exacerbated existing challenges related to menstrual health and hygiene. So addressing these challenges require a whole of society approach and dialogues and partnership across governments, sectors, and stakeholders, and between development practitioners and human rights defenders, and across the pillars of the United Nations, development, human rights, but also peace and security. So in this context, we feel that the SDG summit later this year and the summit of the future next year is a vital opportunity that we need to really capture and reignite global commitment to accelerate the implementation of the 2030 agenda and the SDG 6 in particular. So there are many entry points to address menstrual health and human rights as game changers with transformative potential. Obviously, the SDG 6 that we're talking about today and in the halls of UN at HLPF, there are clear interlinkages between safe drinking water, sanitation, and hygiene, including menstrual health and hygiene. And so are SDG 3 and 5, as menstrual health is an integral part of sexual and reproductive health and rights of women and girls, and the achievement of gender equality. And to achieve these results, policymakers and practitioners and other relevant actors have to adopt a comprehensive, multi-sectoral and life cycle approach to menstrual health grounded in human rights. And human rights also strengthen the accountability of the multiplicity of duty bearers with concrete obligations and responsibilities under international human rights law, in particular those related to menstrual health. And our office, OSHR, and in partnership with the other UN system under the UN Water, we have been working to strengthen synergy between the SDG processes and the UN human rights mechanisms. For example, facilitating the engagement of various human rights mechanisms, but also submission of official inputs to HLPF by treaty bodies, CRC, CRPD, and the UPR mechanism. Last year at HLPF, we launched a guidance note that was developed together with the UN system to assist states in integrating human rights into the VNR process. And really the focus of this is that making those government officials coordinating VNR inputs aware of, and there's a dialogue with those governments, those parts of the governments that are preparing reports to treaty bodies and UPR, so that there is a synergy between the data collected on SDG 6 and the work of the monitoring mechanisms on human rights and vice versa. And in all these processes, the participation of women and girls is critical in shaping developments and interventions that address those challenges related to their menstrual health and hygiene. And obviously the women and girls need to be empowered to make informed choices about their lives and bodies, including their menstrual health, and to fight stigma, violence, and discrimination. And here's where educational interventions, particularly human rights education, is very critical to equip individuals with knowledge about their rights. And this excellent video and music produced. I'm really happy to have these examples that should be promoted to other countries as well. This year, we are commemorating the 75th anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And human rights are for everyone, and particularly all human rights, all women and girls. We very much encourage you all to take part in different dialogues taking place to develop a new vision for human rights for the next 25 years. So with that, thank you very much again, and I look forward to hearing all your experiences and examples.
Thank you very much. I think this is so exciting that we are making the linkages to the human rights treaty bodies, that we as civil society, many of us are civil society here, can use that for our work in our countries, use it for monitoring the human rights reporting, and that menstrual rights are becoming part of this. So thank you very much for that. Keep your questions. And I would like to give the floor now to our next speaker. So Bharti Kannan, you are here with us from India. You're the founder of Bund, which is a social enterprise working on sustainable menstrual products, menstrual literacy, policy advocacy and activism. And you are a specialist on gender equality, public health, technology, and we want to hear more about what you're doing in addition to the amazing video which you have produced. The floor is yours.
Thanks, Asha. So at Boond, which is an organization based in the south of India, one of the things that we do is we take menstrual cups and cloth pads to different communities, not particularly as a product innovation, but an innovation with respect to being able to take these products as a tool of change, where the products only serve as one tool in the larger ambit of sexual, reproductive, menstrual, buffering with respect to information and as well as access to health services. Of course, we're a very small organization in a lot of ways, and there's only a certain sphere of influence that we do have. And in that process, to give you a rough idea of how that looks, when we work with certain communities, whether it might be urban, peri-urban, or rural in India, I can broadly tell you that the programs that we take, whether it's ad hoc or long-term, generally result in menstruators, women and girls included, adopting, say, menstrual cups to about 10 to 20% themselves when we go into that local level of information dissemination, and about 30 to 40% of cloth pads. So let's begin with the fact that there is a huge market out there, which is the case that we have already built in to be able to say that the world doesn't need to depend on only one particular type of foisted, and imposing disposable pad as an option in general, which is the larger market share in India. So with that as a larger background, Rebecca, can I have the next slide? I'd like to talk a little bit about connecting, the work that we do with SDG 6 itself, and also run you through some of the local solutions that seem to be working in India to give you a better idea of how partnerships and local self-governance has a key role to take some of these initiatives with green periods and informed choices and ability to be able to create a safe space in a very hyper-local context. Menstrual health is so cross-cutting. We're all sitting here talking about menstrual health, particularly in relevance to water and sanitation. It needs more focus, if I can ask for it very, very openly and blatantly. But beyond that, in India, menstrual health falls across the purview of about 6 or 7 ministries and departments, from the Ministry of Family Welfare and Health to the Ministry of Human Resources and Development, where education is a portfolio, or whether it's the Ministry of Drinking Water and Sanitation. So now, just to begin with the size of the population, the complexity of the issues that we have, it being across so many agencies requires a lot more fundamental, concerted, and focused attention to be able to deliver programs that focus on innovation, information, as well as taking sustainable products to communities. So that's a big challenge that I flag off that we continuously work with on an everyday basis. But there is hope, and a lot of hope in some ways. We've been able to, with a bunch of other organizations and feminist groups and waste groups that work in India, been able to work in the hyper-local context, whether at a district level, which is an administrative unit in a state, or at the level of a panchayat, which is a group level, where the self-governance there, the local governance, somehow, because of long-term evangelization of the benefits of taking rights-based menstrual education to communities, along with products as tools, also to familiarize, so that the beneficiary at the end can make a choice to adopt a product or a bunch of products based on the lifestyle that they live with and experience on a daily basis, or the disorders that they live with, right? Irrespective of those various parameters, these local governments have now found a way to be able to introduce these to their various stakeholders and constituents. For example, there is this particular Gram Panchayat in Kerala called Muhamma, which is India's probably first sanitary pad-free village. There is also the district of Siddipet, which is now turning to become apparently India's first district that is going to be almost green period friendly free. Now, the idea is not here to propose for pushing for these products in this particular manner, but to be able to enable a choice for the menstruator at the end of the day. So that's about the hope that we have. In contrast, though, I would also like to kind of share that some solutions that are still indigenously developed are a big question mark to make. For example, the Bureau of Pharma Public Sector Undertakings in India developed a pad called the Suvidha pad, which they claim to be a degradable pad at 1 rupee, which is really small, and accessible in the local government pharmacies across India. Now, the question remains on the accessibility, but the bigger question is, as a consumer, I don't have information on whether these pads are indeed oxo-biodegradable and under what conditions are they biodegradable. How does a poor person who's able to spend 1 rupee to get a pad have the conditions to actually manage the pad that's been bought? So many questions of indigenous solutions also need to be raised, but more user-centric and agency-driven and menstruator-centric driven initiatives also need to be focused on. And I guess I think I'd close my statement with saying that I do find a lot of hope, and I cautiously always look at various of these processes to be able to bolster into the work that we do. But at the end of the day, we all bleed and we have no control of it, and we have a right to be able to do so with dignity and leisure and pleasure that we can, access. And it's so inspiring to hear Spain's policy adoption of even the menstrual health and hygiene definition, which is a very new definition that's come out only recently, and the very fact that it's already inclusive in the policy will probably go to show various initiatives that will funnel in different ways. So it's very inspiring, and thank you so much. Yeah. Sasha, may I add? Sorry. I do have a few samples of cloth pads and cups on the table. Feel free to take them. There is also a book that is designed for adolescent urban audiences in India on menstrual disorders. So very often we hear of education material with respect to menstruation, knowing your bodies, and so on and so forth. But this specifically is about living with various menstrual disorders as well. So yeah, please feel free whenever after the session. Thank you.
I think we will have a lot of questions for you. Please keep them on hold. What I find interesting is that you look at menstruation as dignity, health, but also in its entire management part. If you have no waste system and you have to deal with your menstrual pads waste yourself in your garden, what does that mean for you? And therefore, it might be more interesting to have reusable pads than maybe not so biodegradable pads. And so I think lots of these questions are very, very practical and really depend on your setting. Do you live in a city? Do you have waste coming by, waste collection coming by? Or do you live on a farm? And so I think the context is so important, and that it's really locally owned, and that you're working with an entire panoply of different options for dignified menstruation for everybody who bleeds. So thank you for that. Keep your questions. And I'm going to ask our next speaker. I think we have Natasha Dukowska online. Is that correct? Natasha, I hope you can hear me. You are from North Macedonia. You have been doing great advocacy with your government, as we just heard, getting them to reduce value-added tax on menstrual products. And you are also working on similar solutions, as we just heard from Barty. So you have a few minutes to tell us a little bit about what you're doing as an NGO, a feminist organization in North Macedonia. We can't hear you, hold on. Hold on. Previously, we heard you very clear and loud. Try again. Try again. If not, we come back to you.
Did you hear me?
Now it's okay. Yes.
Now it's okay. I don't know. It's some time to time it stopped. Anyway, thank you very much. Thank you for this opportunity. to talk again about this topic, which is very important, and basic human rights or women rights, and especially to work about the important issue that affect not only women, but also the environment. The concept of a free toxic period is very important topic that we need to develop now. I want to say that Journalists for Human Rights, which is civil society organization based in North Macedonia, more than 10 years is fighting against menstrual poverty and initiate the toxic free period. 10 years ago, we first encountered the concept of menstrual poverty and start intensively to work on. But because it was some new topic for us, we tried to set up some indicators how to measure and how to know that really exists menstrual poverty. That we identify the indicator like lack of access to menstrual hygiene product, limited access to sanitation facility, missed school or work due to menstruation, stigma and shame surrounding menstruation, and lack of policy and programs supporting menstrual health. But also, I can say that this was not enough. Then we tried to see which tool we can use to identify menstrual poverty. Then we start to work on the need assessment, conducting survey or focus group with individuals who menstruate, menstrual health and hygiene situation analysis to make a baseline survey and menstrual equity index. All of this research that we have made show us that we have really bad results, or that in Macedonia we have deeper and deeper menstrual poverty, which means that only one private school in North Macedonia has conditioned facility for menstrual management. None of the school has product for menstrual hygiene management, which means no soap, no toilet paper, no water, access to water, and none of the school has appropriate facility for removing the menstrual hygiene management waste. Also, the results show that only 50% not only that 50% of the women do not use any hygienic products because they cannot buy it, because they are very expensive for them. We have also information that some of the girls from the rural area, they cannot go in the school because of no access to proper management of the menstrual health, and also about 70% of the girls from the urban area, they avoid to go in the school during the period. This was one alarm for us, and we have a lot of questions what to do now and how to fight against this, how to eject it, the menstrual poverty. Then we decide to make the cost-benefit analysis to see what we can do with the price. In our country, the menstrual product was they have a weight of 18%, which means that menstrual products is luxury products. Then we start to work together with the stakeholder, with the state institution, and through a massive campaign, we ask to reduce the tax from 18 to 5%. No, but this was not enough. This shows us that with reducing the tax on the annual level, each woman they will pay less, around €7, which is nothing. Then we're looking what will be the next thing and how to come to the cheaper and most affordable product, menstrual product. Then our analysis showed that we must ask subsidizing the menstrual cup and ask for the free period or access to free reusable menstrual pads for all schoolgirls involved in the regular education process. But now we have the new question: how we can achieve this, even that in our country doesn't exist reusable pads, we cannot find it. Then with the support of the UK Embassy and the Global Environmental Fund, we start a project called Budget Mama, in which we decide to start to sewing reusable menstrual pads to establish to establish the social entrepreneurship in which we involved the women from marginalized group, rural women, women who lost their job, victim of violence, opiate addict, that they join this social entrepreneurship and start to see the reusable parts that after will be distributed to the school girls in all primary and secondary school in our country. Parallel with this, we started to work to ask each municipality to buy and to distribute free of charge the menstrual pads for all girls involved in the regular school, and it was one of the steps that we are doing regarding to reduce the menstrual poverty. But I think and I believe that we are on the beginning because we need a lot of things to do, and we continue with support of our government, especially in Institute for Public Health, to develop our strategy for reusable parts to be close to each woman, especially to girl, in which way we will reduce the waste, the infection to women, but in the same time we will have the free, toxic-free menstruation. I think that this is a basic woman rights, and all of us, we need to fighting for this.
Thank you. Thank you, Natasha. Thank you very much. Having joined us from North Macedonia, where it's already evening. And thank you for these examples. Indeed, this shows that if you want to make sure that your human right becomes a lived experience, there is a lot of steps to take. So we're going to hear from our colleague, Susan Yumbe. And Susan, you're from Avia Plus, and you're a water and sanitation hygiene activist. And you are the founder and executive director of Avia Plus, which is an NGO working on the prevention and control of diseases, the provision of water and sanitation hygiene, and empowerment of girls and young persons. So the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Susan Yumbe, founder and director of Avia Plus organization. I have grown up at the area where there is no water, and for the parts when I got my first period, the problem of central pad, it was the big challenge. So after 6 years, when I joined the university, I found that the same problem still existed, and then I initiated Avia Plus organization, a non-business organization dealing with prevention and control of diseases through water, sanitation, and hygiene, with focus on girls and women, education, and health. In Avia Plus organization, for 6 years, we have been dealing with water, sanitation, and hygiene, and we have different projects of water, like water in schools, central pad, and safe pad lab project, menstrual hygiene, sexual reproductive health and rights, and women empowerment projects. According to research done by UNICEF and SNV, girls in Tanzania miss their studies for 3 to 5 days in every month. And in Tanzania, around 57% of schools have no functional hand washing facility, and almost 40% have no water supply or improved sanitation. Also, girls who do not have access to pads miss 3 to 4 days, this according to World Bank and UNICEF. And also I have some few data According to MAGISAF International Organization, water facilities are not operating in 46% of the cases. And 63% of school latrines do not have a place to dispose of sanitary pads. So you can see all these challenges around different parts of Tanzania. And in Afya Press Organization, through the support from Malala Fund, we initiated the Safe Pad Lab project. In this project, we are removing all barriers schoolgirls face during the menstruation period, and we are working in part of education. And in part of education, resources like availability of sanitary pad and the infrastructures, and also for the part of policies. For the part of education, we prepared a special curriculum working with government officials, Ministry of Health and Ministry of Education. And also we work with government to make sure that they give us session to train schoolgirls about menstrual hygiene management and sexual reproductive health and rights in schools curriculum. So after the discussion of long time, the government decided to give us session in Ilinga region. So we have session like school sessions where we are training schoolgirls and boys about sexual reproductive health and menstrual hygiene management. For the part of education, we have reached the 53 schools in Ilinga, Tanzania, but also we have reached the 30,600 schoolgirls and boys. Also for the part of education, we make sure that the curriculum is used by other people in government and other organizations to make sure that we work together to fight the period poverty and to make sure girls have education about menstruation and they have access to sanitary pads. The second part is a part of infrastructure. In this part, Afya Plus organization, we are helping to provide access to clean and safe water to schools, including construction of hand washing station to make sure that girls have access to water at the school level, because when we give them pads and there is no water, the problem is still there. Also, at this part, we have improved and provided access of water to 35 schools in Ilinga, Tanzania, including the initiating of menstrual hygiene, including the initiating of sanitary pad laboratories to 15 schools. At that part, we have provided machines and materials and knowledge of how to make reusable sanitary pads. So you can see this is an example of the product we are making at school level, and this pad have made by schoolgirls in those 52 schools. Also for the part of policies, we conducted advocacy meeting with community and government leaders to make sure that government and schools have budget of sanitary pads, so that to help girls, especially during emergency period when they are at school, to get access to sanitary pads. But also we make sure that the government provide us session at schools to train girls about menstrual hygiene management, and at the end to make sure that girls don't have any problems with menstruation issues. They can attend classes every day like boys, and at the end it will increase their school performance and increase their school attendance as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Susan, for your amazing work being done in Tanzania. So many schools. And of course, I think that is really a key issue, that those who suffer most from menstrual poverty are often girls. Yeah? And therefore, starting with the schools is really a very big and important step. And making that affordable for schools, making the pads themselves reduces, of course, the cost. Do you know how much it costs to make one of these pads?
Okay, to make this one of the pad, it costs you almost $0.30 USD. 0.30. Yes.
So, a great many thanks. So, Anna, you're next on my list. Would you like to first ask some questions to the panelists, or would you like to comment already on what you heard and give your presentation? The floor is to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody, for being here and giving us the opportunity to have this side event on something that it's so important for women and girls worldwide. We are biologically fated to have menstruation, and then at a certain age not to have the menstruation, but this is something that we are very happy to live with, really, and defines us all. I have been very surprised about the contributions coming from India, Tanzania, and the examples that we have heard here of how they are dealing and addressing the challenges of women and girls who live in these parts of the world and face and different experience around menstruation that maybe the experience that we have in other parts of the world. I would like, it's been so interesting, I would like to address you both a question around the biggest challenges that you have confronted when dealing with authorities in order to make them understand how important it is to educate girls from an early age about their menstruation, about the physical changes, about their rights, about how to live with it. And if it's been a big challenge, or if the authorities have understood that these conversations have to take place in the educational settings. And then I would like to also, later on when you answer this question, continue with a few remarks on my side. Thanks.
Of course, providing education to girls, not only girls and boys too, is very important, including at the early age, because they grow up to understand that menstruation is not an accident. Example, in some parts of Tanzania, you're not allowed to talk about menstruation in open spaces. And those taboos make those girls to feel like, I'm not like to be a boy so that I can't menstruate. So we want them to grow up and understand that it's a part of biological change, and it's healthy and normal for girls and women to menstruate. So I see it's very important, and I wish we should push government and other stakeholders to see the importance of including the menstruation issues in school curriculum so that it can avoid those stigmas in the community and everyone will be free.
Thanks for the question. I'd like to address it with two different examples. I find that the space of working with governments at different levels is a complex and challenging situation in any context, right? Like take for example, with the aspect of waste, menstrual waste in India, there is so much ambiguity in the law, in the way in which waste is segregated at source, collected, as well as managed in that value chain, that even today we don't have an idea or clarity of whether menstrual waste is a domestic waste or a biomedical waste in India, right? Now, so by virtue of this, when we end up working with authorities, right, when authorities themselves don't have clarity by virtue of that classification, so many other parameters kick in, right? Like as to how you collect it, how you manage it, where it has to go, where it can be incinerated. Because of the challenges in not having robust systems and robust understanding of the way in which waste is accumulated in India, this is something that the authorities themselves struggle with. So that's one part of the problem. The other part is that I feel across the levels, people are very interested and keen to work on menstruation. There is no doubt about that. But I think the way to approach it, right, very piecemeal, very reactionary initiatives of let's procure 10,000 pads for a community of, let's say, 10,000 girls in a school. That would be the instinctive go-to solution from authorities themselves. Or let's get incinerators, when actually we don't know in India, according to law or according to technology, which is a safer incinerating method, because the incinerator requires access to electricity, it requires operations and maintenance, it requires some operational funding in that local school or the prison that is installing that incinerator to be able to run it through the time period. So sometimes initiatives are not thought out in a long-term and sustainable manner, losing out interest from the constituents we want to work with. So it becomes a failure. So those projects don't take up. And then the authorities end up thinking that, okay, it was not an effective solution, so we should not work on the solution. Instead, it requires a broader imagination. It requires more partnerships, and a lot more dialogue in some sense. Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah.
Well, on my side, I just want to make a few remarks around sexual reproductive health and rights. This is the guiding star for the introduction of these new measures and policies in the Spanish law, recognizing that women and girls have sexual and reproductive health rights, and it's their right, and that's a human right. And that's why the definition now around menstrual health contains the word right. We have also tried to address the barriers around menstruation, and we have tried to remove those barriers. These barriers have been around how to deal with menstruation in workspaces, and that means that if unfortunately your menstruation is more than just something that happens once a month, but it gives you real health problems, that you can bring this to the attention of your superiors, and you can take a sick leave without any consequence to your pay or to your career. We have also addressed this issue, and we have extended the right to everybody who menstruates, and this includes menstruating persons, regardless of their gender. So there is diversity approach and non-discriminatory approach to menstruation. We have taken also menstruation to the education settings. So we are also removing barriers around and removing taboos around menstruation, so that we can all talk about menstruation without feeling ashamed of it. And finally, we have included an approach around menstruation from an economic justice and rights, so that women cannot be discriminated because they menstruate throughout a number of years of their lifetime in regards to access to sanitary products. And this applies specifically to the most vulnerable populations of women, those who are in prisons, as we heard before, and who have more difficult access to menstruating products, hygiene products. These are the main final remarks that I wanted to introduce, and to complement the remarks that were delivered by my colleague Pablo at the beginning. And again, thank you very much for being here, and pass the mic over to you.
Thank you very, very much, Ana Maria Alonso Giganto. Amazing work. I'm really happy also that Spain has a presidency of the EU for the coming months. And we hope that you can, bring also these good examples from Spain to other countries in the region. I'm going to open the floor, because I know we have probably quite a lot of questions. I also know that we have a friend here from Romania who maybe would like to comment on that as well, because you're also an EU country and you might have some challenges. So we have Senas and Bette, and I see already a hand from Shaima from Egypt, and I see a hand from our friends from Romania, and I see a hand over there at the end. Okay, maybe we start with Shaima, and then we go all the way to the back, and then we come into the middle. There we go. And please introduce yourself, your name, your organization, your country. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sasha. My name is Shaima Ali, and I am representing several, I would say, feminist groups in Egypt, starting with the Kinana Association for Women Empowerment, Zintamkin, and of course, a co-founder of Rausa Network for Safe Abortion and SRHN rights. So thank you so much, and I thank especially, of course, the representation of Spain for being, like I would say, open to such a discussion, because I know also there is a, I would say, water scarcity issue in Spain, and we read about it. So here we go that we can hear about the interlinkages or intensify the interlinkages between the climate change and the climate change impact, and the open discourse about SRHN rights and definitely the menstruation. So thank you so much for allowing us to have such discussion, an open discussion today. Just I would like to speak, I'm not representing, of course, the whole region, but I would like to speak on behalf of the women in the region, that we have also another debate about the women needs for menstruation and hygiene in humanitarian context countries. And this is something very critical, because sometimes if we are speaking about developing countries, you are raised in a community that you are already from like a child, you are facing the issue that how you can manage your menstruation. However, when there is some fleeing context and you have to flee for your life or whatever, so we can realize the psychological impact, which is also, I would say, impacting our I would say, menstruation cycle. Anyway, it's a psychological issue, definitely, and we know this. So this is something we have to maybe to consider as a separate pillar when we are talking about SRHN rights and menstruation hygiene. So maybe I'm just shedding the light on such an issue.
Very important.
About the humanitarian context of countries, because in our region we are talking about almost more than 50% of Middle East and North Africa Arab states are in humanitarian context. Even if in countries of the humanitarian development nexus, they are still facing the same issues, like, for example, speaking about Libya as neighboring country for Egypt. So we are actually talking about something that has never been undertaken by even like UNHCR, for example, or HCR. So there are issues that maybe they are integrated in the maternal health component of the assistance, but the menstruation hygiene is not actually dealt as a separate issue or pillar when we are talking about the direct assistance or the dignity kit or something. So this is something we have maybe to consider, that this, I would say, the transformation in the life of women is actually has a dramatic influence on her menstruation and her needs. So maybe this has to be put at the top of our agenda when we are talking about women in general. And of course, we are having this human rights-based approach and the equitable approach. So maybe this something has to be considered.
Very important point. So menstrual rights in conflict situations, in refugee camps, for women who are fleeing and who are on the road. And it's even more important and difficult in that situation. So thank you for that question. We're going to ask the panelists to comment on that. Let's take a question at the end. Yes?
Hi everyone, my name is Latifa and I'm with Community Care Collective. The topic on menstrual hygiene is very, very important to me. I have experience in mental health, and one of the things that I do on the side is to use storytelling as a tool to ensure that children and adolescents' cognitive and emotional development is well taken care of. I love to hear everything everyone said here today, but we have seen a lot of times where girls, adolescents, and even like they go through a lot of menstrual, a lot of issues, starting from all the way from anxiety, panic attacks, into like depression, and in fact, increase in societal behaviors because of menstruation. And I plead to you all. I'm calling on all stakeholders. I'm calling on all member states. This is very important. We have to work together to ensure that everyone, and I'm saying it today, everyone, boys, girls, everyone must be included in early intervention and early education. We have to ensure that we teach boys how to be supportive when girls are actually going through a menstrual cycle, how to understand that sometimes they could be very irritable. It's okay, it's normal, it comes with that biological change. We have to teach boys how to be more kinder to girls when they're going through this period. If we don't, there is more to it. There's going to be a lot of bullying. There's going to be a lot of other things because they don't know what's going on. And if they don't know, you can't blame them. The time is now. Let's act. Thank you.
Thank you, Latifa. Thank you very much. Especially when we see that in some countries, like this one, there are some states who would like to forbid talking about your period and menstruation in schools. I'm thinking of Florida. Horrible, horrible, horrible. So it should really be a right. It should really be in all school education. It should be for boys and for girls. And it's an essential part, I think, indeed. And also the link to mental health is very important. So I'll ask the panelists to come back to your point. We have another question over here.
I just wanted to add some comments about the situation in Romania. First of all, I want to congratulate you on your amazing work. I wanted to say that unfortunately in Romania, even though 3 years ago we became a high-income country, menstrual poverty is still a huge issue. Unfortunately, we don't know for sure how big of an issue it is because we don't have research on this. But still, we know in the rural communities where we work that there are girls and other persons who menstruate who don't attend school or don't go to work because they don't have any sort of hygiene products to use during their menstruation cycle. And I also wanted to add about the education. Yes, it's very important to have education in school about sexual and reproductive health and rights. Unfortunately, we don't have this in Romania. It's actually been in discussions to forbid it multiple times in the last years. And the only moment while you are in school when you speak about menstruation in any sorts of way, it's when corporations come to give free samples. And what they do is that they take out the boys in the room and they only speak with the girls. And then, of course, in the breaks there is this huge laughing session about what did the girls talk about and how menstruation is, a shame. Because this is why boys cannot be there and speak about menstruation there. So unfortunately, there's still a long way to go. But I'm really inspired about your work and thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you very much. So we had quite a few very interesting comments and questions. And I would like to ask the panelists if you would like to answer any of them. We have a few minutes left for our discussion. So we had questions about the rights, menstrual rights in conflict settings, in refugee centers. I don't know if this is something you would like to talk about, or you would like to talk about. We also had questions about education. Who would like to go first? Yeah, go ahead.
The work that we do is not so much in the disaster and conflict context, but then, with what I'm familiar, and maybe you could add on, is the SPEAR standards that does, explain, the various minimum standards for water, menstrual products, so on and so forth. But it's a very difficult situation in real in India as well, even across the cyclone context or any natural disaster that we've worked in. The focus goes a lot more on minimum initial services packages related to maternal health and natal health, where menstrual health gets completely forgotten in a lot of contexts. So I completely agree, even though the context is very different, and it needs a lot more impetus in that sense. And I just want to thank Latifa for a very impassioned call to action. And if you want to know more about the interconnections between mental health and menstrual health, this book is all about that, with PMDD, PME, and PMS, and various kinds of menstrual disorders that we live with and how it affects our everyday being as well. So just wanted to add that. Thank you.
Okay. For the part of menstruation, I know we should focus on groups like prison and at the areas where there is problems, but In Africa, especially in rural areas, all areas are the same, and the problem is facing everyone because you can find maybe because of taxi, so central pad is very expensive. So most women and girls who are affected are from rural areas, and it includes both in a prison and a refugees center. So I see when you talk about menstruation and when we talk about the availability of central pad and infrastructure, we are facing both in rural areas and in the places where there is refugees, people and prisoners, because when we fought the government or when we ask the government to have a good policies, example to remove tax on central parts, it means central party will be cheap and will be available for everyone, even at prison. But also maybe we should keep on pushing on policies to provide free central pad at the school level, prisoners and other places where there is people who in need and people who cannot afford to get central pads. But also I want to add to someone who said about education. I know we can see maybe it's simple thing to train them about menstruation and sexual reproductive health issues, but we have to think about the future. After 20 to 30 years, those children are becoming adult and they are going to become the leaders of tomorrow. So when they will grow up, understand about menstruation and what needs and what the important part of including women needs on water sanitation and hygiene issues, it means when they become readers, it will be easy for them to remove things like tax, to provide a free central pad for girls and other women in poor area and women in need. So we see this problem. We don't want to talk about it now for 5 or 3 years, but we want to find solution for 20 to 30 years. Because we believe those who understand about menstruation today, they become leaders of tomorrow and make life easy for women and girls. Thank you.
So if I may also add my some reflection, it was really inspiring. It's always inspiring to hear these experiences and story from the ground. And somebody at the beginning talked about, yes, we have a law, human rights or constitution, but the reality is different. So in many countries, in many contexts, we have a big implementation gap. But the solutions exist and innovations are there. So these are examples, and I see at the bottom of these examples, what is a common thread is really you said that agency of women and girls, and the way that they're empowered and participate and come up with a unique solution is very important. But also, we need to pay attention to the mechanisms and institutions that should really protect those innovations and encourage them and not leave them in stigma or punished. Let's talk about the police, right? In many cases, most of them are men. So we need to train, educate police so that they can protect those NGOs and civil society working on menstrual health, right? But also, we also need to keep working on the other aspect, which is political will and political commitment. And I'd just like to come a little bit to the UN Water Conference that we just had last March. It was an important conference. It was a water conference. It was not called the Water Sanitation Conference. My point being is that the sanitation agenda is always somehow lagging behind, including in terms of implementation of the targets as well. So we need to promote both water and sanitation agenda together. And we need to make sure those voluntary commitments under the Water Action Agenda are implemented and followed through. And since there's no real official monitoring mechanism after the conference, we need to work with the existing mechanisms, including the human rights treaty bodies and mechanisms. Unfortunately, a couple of years ago, we did a research. How many recommendations are about SDG 6? And the result is disappointingly 1% or so. Now, this was before COVID, so now I assume there's more attention to water and sanitation issues. But we need to really make that link between those local situations, innovations, and the mechanisms that exist so that we can keep the pressure on, both at the national and international level. My voice is fading out, so I'll stop here.
Thank you very much. I can offer you some water. But that's indeed very important. Thank you for that. And Anna, you have the last word before I close.
Very quickly, only
two more words before I close.
Okay,
Anna.
so very quickly, regarding the humanitarian cities that you have asked about, I have to let you know that we have a resolution, which is the human rights on water and sanitation. And in this resolution, we reference humanitarian settings and conflicts in general. So it is already there, and it's a mandate for all the agencies to take into consideration menstrual hygiene and sanitation in humanitarian settings, and the access to water and sanitation in those settings. As per education, I truly believe that it's very important to take, as I said, menstruation and the taboos around menstruation to the educational systems and involve boys as agents of change. As you have mentioned, in the future, they will be leaders, and we need them side by side with women and girls. So we all will be leaders and we'll be together. And finally, yes, it's very important water and sanitation go together. And in the water conference that you're talking about this year, we are now working on organizing the water conference for next year. And we want this water conference to have a human rights-based perspective, to look into water, not only from a point of view of climate change, access to water, etc., like a commodity in the world, but also from the point of view of a human right. To have access to water and sanitation is a human right. And we hope that we can talk about that in the next water conference. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anna. Thank you, thank you. We look forward to the next conference, and we're happy to make menstrual health and rights a key topic. So that's great. I think we have almost to close, but I understand we still have one comment online. Let me see if that's the case. Natasha. Yes, Natasha. 1 minute. We can't hear you. We can't hear you. Try again. Try again. Try again. No. Yes.
I don't know why.
Yeah.
Now it's better?
Yeah.
Okay. I only want to say that access to menstrual product, it's not only for the woman in conflict zone. Yes, they are maybe more on the risk, but also it's very important the woman in shelter, because they are in the great need of the unimpeded access to menstrual health management products. I can say from our experience that the first company or the first institution they asking help was the shelters where they are victim of the violence. And also, I wanted to add one word about the educational material. We face the problem that in our country, we don't have any material, except this compendium that we developed together with WCF regarding the menstrual health, that we started to recording tutorial, how to sew pets and how to maintain them. And I can say that this material are one of the most visited, which say that the women need alternative products, because otherwise they will be they will must use material that are not proper for managing the menstrual health. That we're on the good direction to fighting against the menstrual poverty. Thank you.
Thank you, Natasha, for mentioning that we have indeed a really interesting educational compendium with an entire chapter on menstrual health for schools, which is being used all over the Western Balkans, and it's translated into 6 languages. So if you're interested, we'll be glad to share that link with you. And I wanted just, if you can show me the slide on the water conference, I just wanted to mention that the women's major group and WCF and lots of partners, we have submitted a voluntary commitment on menstrual health. We're one of, I think, 10 commitments on menstrual health from the 700 or so. And we would be very happy to see how we can work with partners, local authorities and governments on promoting and getting more support for these commitments on menstrual health. And we also know that more and more countries are looking at national menstrual health plans. We had also invited a professor from Columbia University, Marnie Sommer, but she's currently working with Ethiopia on their national menstrual health plan. So there is a lot of things happening, and we should make use, of that what is there. We should use the existing human rights treaties in promoting that, and we really are happy to hear that Spain, that you will be helping to organize the next water conference is a focus on human rights and hopefully on menstrual rights as well. And with that, I would like to close this session, but please come and speak to the panelists, and a huge thank you to all the panelists for their fantastic contribution.
Recording stopped.